Hi everybody, hope you are doing great. So we are doing another course on the kosher kitchen, and today we will see the notion of Reisha Milsa. Reisha Milsa means transmittal of taste through aroma. So we will see that when we bake two different foods simultaneously in a oven, so there is a possibility of aroma and taste being transmitted from one to another. And it's called in the Talmud as Reisha Milsa, because Reisha is the aroma and Milsa, it means that it's significant. So the only fact of the aroma can make some problem of prohibition of basar vechalav or taref and kosher. It's very important because we usually think that if we really cook some taref with some kosher or some chalav with some basar, some meat with milk, some kosher with non-kosher, we think that it's a problem. But no, even the aroma, so as we will see, with the steam of in the oven and everything, it can be problematic. So when we get this type of problem, when we cooked in the same oven some milk and then some meat or the inverse, something like that, so we have to know that we usually assume post facto, so bediavad, that the aroma is insignificant and the food may be eaten. That's very important, because it's not like we are cooking two food, as we said, in the same oven, but ready to put some milk on some chicken or something like that. No, it's just the aroma, the steam. So it's problematic. We have to avoid it, but most usually we assume that post facto, so we can't do it lecatchila. In the beginning, we can't do it, but post facto, bediavad, we can eat the food. And the issue of Reisha is one of the issues relevant to cooking, roasting, and baking in our events today. And another relevant issue is the problem of Zeya. Zeya is the steam, which will be, and we will see it in another course. We will focus on Reisha Milsa today. Also, these salachos are generally discussed with regard to non-kosher food, and we will direct our study toward meat and dairy food, since the issue is more applicable in our Jewish home. Of course, we usually don't have any non-kosher food in our home, so we will just focus on the problematic of dairy and meat food. I'm sorry for all the notifications. So the general principle is preferable to have two ovens in our home, one exclusively for meat and one exclusively for dairy, thereby avoiding all Reisha and Zeya problem. So we can be sure to avoid every transmittal of taste through aroma and every transmittal with some steam. And anyone upgrading their kitchen should give primary consideration to updating the kashrut status of their home by installing two ovens and stovetops, of course, to have one meat and one dairy. However, many households are limited to the use of one oven for both meat and dairy, and so we have to be very careful about the halachot of Reisha and Zeya to don't make some non-kosher food, chas v'shalom. A little note of caution, my author. Using a oven simultaneously for meat and dairy is more serious than the problem of the Reisha alone. Because the problem of Reisha is when I use my oven to cook some meat, and then I throw away the meat and I cook some dairy thing. So I can have some problem. But if I want to cook in the same oven some dairy and some meat separately, but in the same oven at the same time, it can be a serious problem about Reisha. And there are other potential serious kashrut issues when foods that roast or bake simultaneously in the oven may touch each other and absorb taste from one another. So if I cook some meat and just down it some cheese, some milk, so if we got some salts or something in the meat and our plate is not, we got some hole in our plate, and so we can have some salts falling on the milk plate, it is very, very problematic. And we have a real problem of basar v'chalav because we really put together some meat and some milk. And that's one of the serious things we have to worry about when we cook in the same oven some milk and some meat. Also, foods that are placed on other shelves above each other may drip gravy or sauce into the lower foods. That's what we just said. And if either of the foods being cooked contain liquids, it produces steam, and one must contend with the problem of zeya, as we saw. Zeya, again, is a steam. And this problem will apply even if the food are not cooked simultaneously, and we will discuss about it later. I'm sorry, just kept the notification. All right. So the arachot of Reisha differ with regard to lechatchila, the optimum course of action, and bediavad, it's an ex post facto situation, as we saw. So, as we saw, we have to be very careful. Bediavad, sorry, lechatchila, the optimum course of action. So initially, one may not roast meat and dairy currently in a oven, even if they do not touch each other, and there is no chance of the meat gravy or steam reaching the dairy food. One should not even roast parve food in a oven with either meat or dairy if the parve food will be eaten with the other type of food. Because if I just put a cake, which is parve with some meat in my oven, and I want to then eat my parve cake with some cream with milk, we will have a problematic about basar v'chalav. So we have to be careful, because the parve, when it's cooked with some meat food in the oven, not in the same oven, but not in the same plate, we can have some problem, and the parve food can become basar, like meat, and then we'll have a problematic to eat it with some cream or after eating a dairy thing or whatever. Now let's talk about the bediavad, the ex post facto situation. So after the fact, one who baked dry meat and dairy food currently in the oven, we can eat it, but only after the fact. So we can't have the marshava, the thinking about, I will make it and it's okay. After the fact, I can just eat it. No, it's when we didn't take attention, sorry, about it. So then after we just put it away and we say, oh God, I just forgot. I just put my parve food on my dairy food with some meat. So then after the fact, you can say, it's okay, we can eat it. However, sorry, I don't know what's happening today. There is a significant exception to this rule. First one, if the oven is completely closed and non-vented, very important, non-vented, because a lot of ovens are not vented, the food may not be eaten unless serious financial loss will be incurred. And since nowadays all household ovens are vented, I'm sorry for that it wasn't vented, but the most are vented, this halacha has no application to regular household ovens. However, a microwave microwave oven is completely closed, and it can pose a serious problem of Reisha, besides the problem of Zera, of course, Zaya. So we have to consider whether if meat and dairy food were cooked currently in a microwave oven. The second significant exception is if either of the food is sharp, the food may not be eaten. And the law of Chametz and Passover are more stringent with regard to the question of Reisha, even in an ex post facto situation, because the rule of Passover, it's Minatorah, it comes from the Torah, and when we have Safek, when we have doubt about a Torah prohibition, we have to go lechumra. Lechumra is with strength. Some ex post facto situation I consider lekatrila if one has another course of action. For example, if one who baked bread currently with meat may not eat that bread with dairy, since one has the option of eating the bread alone or with meat, choosing to eat the bread with dairy constitute lekatrila. If, however, no other bread is available to eat with the dairy food, one may eat the bread with dairy. And one who eats the bread may certainly eat dairy immediately afterwards. So we can't, in some cases, as we just saw, we can't eat the bread with some dairy food. But when we eat the bread, we are not becoming basari. We can eat some cheese or some milk right after. Okay? We just can't eat with some milk right now. But when we just finish to eat bread, we can eat some milk. Not like when we eat some meat, then we have to wait 6 or 3 hours to eat some milk. Now, if either of the food is completely covered, they cannot transmit aroma to each other. For example, if one of the food is in a pot covered by a lid or in a pan slightly covered by foil, no aroma is transmitted to another food in the oven. Therefore, meat completely covered in a pot may be baked in an oven simultaneously with dry dairy foods. Nevertheless, cooking meat and dairy food in the oven simultaneously, even if the food is covered, is fraught with problem and should be avoided because a mistake is very quick to make. And one who is traveling may warm or cook food in the non-kosher oven of a motel if the food are completely and tightly double wrapped in aluminum foil. So when we go to an Airbnb or to an hotel or whatever, and we have to warm some food, we have to really tightly double wrap in aluminum foil our plates. And why one may not roast meat and dairy or parve food with his ramen parve with either meat or dairy concurrently in a oven, even if they do not touch each other. Similarly, one should not bake chalots while the challah set aside is burning in the oven. If meat and dairy food were cooked or baked and covered simultaneously in the oven, so if either of the food is sharp, the food may not be eaten. If the food were bland, they are unaffected bediavad, it's after the fact. If one baked bread concurrently with meat, he may not eat that bread with dairy. If no other bread is available to eat with the dairy food, so we can eat it together. If either of the food is completely covered by a light or foil, the other food is unaffected. Nevertheless, one should avoid cooking meat and dairy food in the oven simultaneously, even if both our foods are covered. One may warm or cooking food in the non-kosher oven of a motel if the food are completely and tightly double wrapped in aluminum foil. And if meat and dairy food were cooked simultaneously in a microwave oven, a Rav must be consulted. So now we will see an additional aspect of Reisha, which, although not within the scope of this chapter, warrant attention. So we will say about enjoying the fragrance of a non-kosher foods. So the issue of Reisha, as discussed, relates to the aroma of prohibited food absorbed into permitted foods. One who subsequently eats the kosher food is also eating, as it were, the non-kosher taste. However, inhalating fragrance, it's not in itself a form of eating or drinking. Rather, it's a form of deriving benefit. We call it ana. There are two types of prohibited foods. Isuri achila, foods that may not be eating, and isuri ana, it's food from which one may not derive any benefits. Enjoying the aroma of non-kosher food may fall within the prohibition of deriving benefit from prohibited foods, not within the prohibition of eating those foods. The halachot regarding fragrance of prohibiting food are this one. First, one may enjoy the fragrance of food that may not be eaten, so it's permitted. One may not enjoy the fragrance of foods from which one may not derive benefits, like Isurana. And some poskim, some rebbe, permit enjoying their aroma if the food is a type of food that is primarily eaten, not used for fragrance. And some other poskim just disagree about it. We got the Pri-Toar, for example. And an exception to this rule is Yayin Neser. It's a wine poured as an offering to Avodah Zarah, to some idolatry. Due to the severity of Avodah Zarah, one may not enjoy the aroma of Yayin Neser, even if the wine is not usually used for fragrance. And we just have to know that most of the time we just consider Christianism as Avodah Zarah because we just go with some statue and idol of Jesus and Mary and everything. So just like Avodah Zarah. So if some Christian use some wine for their Avodah, for their religion, so we have the strict Ishurana, it's Yain Nesher, and we can do anything with this type of wine. So just two little practical application. One who passes a non-kosher bakery or restaurant may pause and enjoy the pleasant aroma, and any non-kosher food in the bakery is probably not among them from which one may not derive benefit, or those used primarily for fragrance. The second one is one passing a house of Avodah Zarah, so like the Catholic houses, may not derive pleasure from any fragrance of incense that is emitted. Indeed, if the fragrance cannot be avoided, one must, if possible, refrain from passing the building. And that's why, little halacha more, that's why we can go to the mosque, to the Muslim shul, but we can't go to the Catholic shul. The English, don't know how to say it in English, but it's the church, sorry. We can go because it's like Avodah Zarah. So it's totally prohibited. And some Rebbe also said that when we see a church in our road, so we have to change our road to don't pass just next to the church. And we will see Be'ezrat Hashem next week more especially about Zeya, the transmittal of take through steam, which is very important because steam is like everywhere in a oven, in a pan, everything. So it's very important to be very precautious about it. Shkayach, everybody.